107.
You have 4 kids in the family. You have 8 kids in the family. You don't have 8 devices.
Page 107.
Okay, so you have to.
So I just want to give everyone a yashkach this morning. The shul was engaged in social distancing. We had less than 15 people for the minyan, which is very good. I'm glad that we were able to stick to that, and that we're all very spread out. There's a tshuva from Rabbi Kiveger. I was just mentioning that in the cholera epidemic in 1831, he suggested that people not daven in a very tight quarters, and that they limit the minyanim to 15 people per minyan, and that they should stagger, instead of having one big minyan, just stagger the minyanim so you have a lot of small minyanim throughout the day. So I just want to give a yashkach to the shul for, I know it was very difficult for us, but we were able to limit the minyan to only 15 people. But that was good. No, but it's really true that he said that, because some people close the shuls,
right.
And I would assume, I'm not a doctor, but I would assume that cholera is more deadly than coronavirus. I don't know.
I saw the email.
What?
I saw that
Facebook post. Yeah. What was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, now that for those engaging in self-quarantine and social distancing, it's a perfect time to work on what we've been discussing in Mr. Sharm, that one of the biggest inhibitors to growing in service of Hashem is that we're always so busy and we don't have time to sit and think. So now we have a lot of time to sit and think. So instead of watching the news and getting scared and hearing about everything, it could be a good time, it could be the perfect time to sit and think about why we're here in this world, what our mission is, and how we can improve that, and engage in some self-introspection. The other thing, I spoke to a big Talmud Chacham. He said he felt the reason this was happening was that Hashem, when we do an Aveira, Hashem punishes us midah keneged midah. And he thinks that people weren't treating others with respect, and we were having a lot of fights with each other, having a lot of machlokas, so now Hashem is forcing us to be apart. So that could be why this is happening. Okay, but let's, we're learning in Mesilas Yesharim the various things which detract from zehirus, from being careful in not violating any of the negative prohibitions, being careful in serving Hashem, and we're at Hamafsid Hashlishi on page 107. We discussed earlier 2 things which detract from zehirus. Again, one of the first ones was that we are always so busy we don't have time to sit and think what our purpose is in this world, because we're busy with work, with exercise, with family, with friends, and we don't have time to just sit and think. Okay, so let's go on to the third thing which detracts us from serving Hashem and acquiring the attribute of zehirus. So hamafsid of shlishi, the third thing which detracts us, hu achevra, friends, dahainu chevras hatipshin v'achotim, meaning having friends which are fools and sinners. Humasha kazavaymer, this is what the verse says, v'roach silim yero. Those who have friends that are fools, they will be broken, he says, evil will befall them. So it's very important not to have bad friends. Peer pressure, having bad friends is something which detracts a person from wanting to serve Hashem properly. Okay.
What about trying to influence these bad friends into?
So that's.
That doesn't work, does it?
It depends. It seems from here that it's a very dangerous thing. Sometimes we think we're going to positively influence others, and what happens is that we get negatively influenced.
That's the thing. You have one bad apple, it ruins the whole bag. It's never the other way around.
Right.
It's nice to hope for that, but it doesn't work that way.
Right. And there's obviously, I assume there's a difference between, you're going to see what we're talking about here. It seems like more people that mock those who serve Hashem and are very antagonistic to Hashem versus someone who just doesn't know any better. Obviously, someone who doesn't know any better, it would seem that, even that, someone who doesn't know any better, there's still an element of being careful, because maybe that person's engaged in activities just from ignorance that he shouldn't be engaged in, and if you're friends with him, it might rub off. Mm-hmm. So it's always a question, each situation is obviously different, but for sure, those people that are just bad people, and they're fools, and they're sinners, and they want to uproot Torah, which have nothing to do with them. All right, page 108. Kihine, anachnu ro'im pa'amim rabos. We see many times. Afilu achar shenis'ames etzel ha'adam chovas ha'avoda v'zehirus ba. Even after a person clarifies to himself the responsibilities that he has in serving Hashem and how he has to be careful with it, yisraba mimenu o yaver al eze devar mimenu kadei shelilagu olav chaverav o kadei lisa'ar v'mahim. Even a person who knows how important it is to serve Hashem and the importance of zehirus, of being careful and observing all the mitzvahs, sometimes he will weaken in his commitment to Hashem, or he will forego certain things that he has to do because he wants to mix in with his friends. He wants to, he doesn't want to disappoint his friends. He wants to look good for his friends, or perhaps he doesn't want his friends making fun of him. Right? If you're going to, you have a group of friends and they say, hey, let's go get a drink and get something to eat at this non-kosher restaurant. You said, oh, I'm really sorry, I only eat kosher. Like, really? You only eat kosher? They start making fun of you. So a person, even though he knows the importance of kashrus, he might be influenced to go with his friends to the non-kosher restaurant just so he could fit in and so they don't mock him and they don't make fun of him. The Rambam also says that where a person, that's why it's so important to choose a good community to live in, because a person is influenced by his surroundings no matter what. It happens. Right? If you live, even if you're a good person, if you live in a bad neighborhood, certain attributes, certain aspects of that bad neighborhood and those bad people are going to rub off on you. Okay. This is what King Solomon said. Im shanim al tisariv. With those, says, he translates it as dissenters, don't mingle. Right? And maybe they'll say to you, maybe they'll be very religious. Right? They'll quote you a Gemara. The Gemara says, you're supposed to integrate with society. You're not supposed to set yourself apart. So come with us to the restaurant. What are you doing? What's the problem? So Afata Omer, you should say to him, when does it say that we should be integrate with society and other people? Bivnei Adam she'os and ma'asei Adam. That's only when you're with people who act like human beings. Lo bivnei Adam she'os and ma'asei behema, but not with people who act like animals. Right? So even though, right, people very often defend their non-religious actions with religious texts, but usually they're misquoting it. They're always misquoting it. So here too, if they say, what do you mean? You should integrate with us. You have to be friends. You can't just set yourself, be by yourself. No, that's only when there's human beings who are acting like people. King Solomon said, go away from a foolish person. King David said, it says, praiseworthy is the one who doesn't go in the counsel of the wicked. The rabbis already explained this. If you're going with the evil people, eventually you're going to stand with them. And if you're just standing with them, eventually you're going to sit. Meaning he's saying that if a person just starts, a little bit associating with evil people, he's going to do it more and more until he becomes a part of them. So you see the danger of even a person who, we're talking about here a guy who's come to the Mesilas Yesharim class, and he knows how important it is to work on serving Hashem, and he just has some bad friends. We see how the bad friends can totally uproot everything that he's accomplished when it comes to Avodas Hashem. We see the importance of having good friends, right? It says, Uknei lecha chaver in the Mishnah. It's very important to have a friend. A good friend is somebody who is a positive influence and tries to help you serve Hashem, not someone who tries to steer you away from serving Hashem. But we all know from Dare, I don't know, I grew up with Dare. You have Dare? Right, we know the Dare. You're probably too old for it. It was drug. It was, no, I don't mean you're old. It was only in this, I think it was like only in the early 90s that they had this. It was drug education. They taught you about the dangers of peer pressure. Right, you shouldn't hang out with friends who do drugs because they're going to try to convince you to do drugs. But okay, v'omer lo yashavti im meiseshav sanesi kal mereim. Right, not to sit with dishonest people or evildoers. Ein lo la'adam el litaher v'likanos atzmo v'limno raglav medarchei haman ashkuim b'havlei azman. A person should avoid the common folk who are just totally involved in wasting their time. V'yashiv ragav al chatzos Hashem, and he should go to the courtyards of Hashem. V'amishkanaisav. David Atzman B'Sayim V'Omer. It's what King David said. Erchatz b'nikayin kapai v'asovva as es mizbachacha Hashem. It's interesting. I saw right. It says also. Oh, well, I'll say that after the next paragraph. Okay, the next paragraph. V'im yaralo shimatze b'chavras mishi lagal. Let's say you find yourself in a situation where your friends are mocking you. This has definitely happened. I'm sure most of us have had this situation in our life. Especially if you're with people who are not yet religious and you're taking on certain mitzvahs to do, and you start doing mitzvahs and it looks very funny and people start mocking you. How should you react in that situation? Lo yashish libo el halago. You shouldn't pay attention to this mocking. Adram, on the contrary. Yiladam oligim v'yivazim. You should mock them and you should denigrate them. V'yachshav v'daito ki lulei haya lo laharviach maman harbe haya maniach ma shehaya tzarech lezeh mivnei chaverev shalei lagu. Imagine if you had the opportunity to make millions of dollars, become very, very wealthy, and people were making fun of you for it, for the business venture you had to do. Would you care? Obviously not. You just care you're going to make millions of dollars, and what do you care that people are making fun of you? Kol shechein, all the more so. You shouldn't want to have your soul go. A person shouldn't want his soul to go in. God God forbid, to destruction because his friends are mocking him. He's here, it says in the Mishnah, can never be as bold as a leopard, to do the will of your Father in heaven. So just...
So you should mock them?
Right, so let's talk about that first. If you look at the footnote on the bottom, according to the Ramchal, if someone's making fun of you for serving Hashem, that means they're an evil person. Right? They shouldn't be making fun of, especially nowadays, when people recognize the importance that people have different religious beliefs and customs. So given that social milieu, they're still mocking you for serving Hashem. They're very bad people. So the Ramchal goes to the point that says not only should you not be embarrassed about them mocking you, but you should go and make fun of them. You should mock them. Now, he brings in the bottom that from the Beis Yosef seems to disagree with this. It's one of the first Bir halachas in the Shulchan Aruch and the Mishnah Berurah. He says that really you should just ignore someone. If someone's mocking you, you should just ignore them. However, even the Bir halacha writes that the Beis Yosef would agree if someone is coming to uproot Torah and he's making certain, the examples that he gives us, making certain laws in the city to make it harder for people to observe Torah, and he's an outright heretic, then you should do your best to fight with him and cause machlokas with him. But he says in general, if someone's just making fun of you, it sounds for serving Hashem, then just ignore him and don't fight with them. Whereas if you look at the Ramchal sounds like in all cases, you should mock somebody who's mocking you. Again, this isn't always so practical, because it could be if you mock him, he'll start a physical fight, and if you're not as big as him, it's not going to be very practical. But he wants to say that really the Beis Yosef agrees to the Ramchal in the footnote on page 111. So
that can get you hurt.
Yeah, you always have to. Obviously, each situation is different, but definitely, if someone is denigrating a Torah scholar, or if someone is denigrating the Torah, and you have the opportunity to fight back, you should definitely say something if it's not going to cause you physical harm or something like that. I just think even when you're, I could definitely relate to this when you're becoming religious, and the people that aren't religious are mocking you for doing these mitzvahs. It comes up, but also someone who's already religious. How many of us have been in a rest stop, going to the bathroom, and you want to say Asher Yatzar, so you wait to your car to say Asher Yatzar, the bracha after going to the bathroom, because you don't want people going around to see you like, what's this guy doing? He looks like a weirdo, talking to himself, because we get embarrassed when we're serving Hashem. So the point here is that we have to be as bold as a leopard when it comes to serving Hashem. We shouldn't care what other people think when we're doing the right thing and we are fulfilling the mitzvahs. I just remember a story. I took my Rosh Yeshiva on a trip somewhere once, and we stopped at a rest stop on the New Jersey Turnpike. It's probably the Woodrow Wilson rest stop. And we went in, and he came out of the bathroom, and he's long gray beard and a Hamburg hat and a frock, and he's just making Asher Yatzar like he'd be in the middle of yeshiva with like intent. He's going like very with his hands down, his head down, and you could see like he's like talking to Hashem. He's not trying to rush it because he's embarrassed, and he's just serving Hashem in front of people the same way he would do it in private. And he said that if the non-Jewish world knew what Asher Yatzar meant and the beauty of it, of how we make a bracha and we thank Hashem every time we go to the bathroom, that we're healthy, especially now, look what's going on. We make a bracha every time that we go to the bathroom, and that and that everything came out well. And we talk, and we talk about the combination in the bracha of the soul and the body, and we're the only species on earth that has a soul which wants to get close to Hashem and the body. Right, the non-Jews would be running to say the bracha also. It's something we should be very proud of. We should be very confident when we serve Hashem. It's a beautiful thing that we have. I always think that Jews for some reason are always embarrassed. It seems to not always, sometimes embarrassed to talk about Hashem. But if you look at religious, especially evangelical Christians, they're not embarrassed to talk about God. They go around talking about God. They quote the Bible. And sometimes Jews, for some reason, we're embarrassed to go around talking about Hashem. We should always be proud of who we are and think that we're the chosen people, chosen by Hashem to serve Him. And it's a tremendous privilege, and we shouldn't be embarrassed. Okay, let's just finish the last page. V'David Amar, page 111. King David said, "Va'adabra be'edosecha neged malachim v'lo evush." I'll speak in your testimony, and I won't be embarrassed in front of kings, and I won't be embarrassed. Right? King David was a king, and you can imagine at the United Nations meeting, what are other kings talking about? They're talking about physical pleasures and all the things they could do as king. But King David, and he wasn't embarrassed to talk about Hashem. He says, I'm going to talk about Hashem in front of these other kings and not be embarrassed. Even though most other kings were involved in physical pleasures, King David was also a king. It would be like a very embarrassing thing for King David to get up and talk about Torah and how we have to serve Hashem and character refinement. That would be a very embarrassing thing. Tachas apra min hagadolos v'matarugim b'nei adam. Come on, right? Everyone else is talking about football and and their cars and women. Hine lo haya chashla ze klal v'lo haya libo nifta b'havalim ha'ela achri shekvar hisig emes. Once King David knew the truth, he wasn't embarrassed to talk about Hashem. He wasn't influenced at all by these other kings talking about these what Rabbi Vishnevsky would usually term narishkeit. El mefarish v'aymer. Rather, he says, I'm going to talk about your testimony in front of kings, and I will not be embarrassed. Isaiah the prophet also said, I won't be embarrassed. So the point is that one of the things which detracts from coming close to Hashem and serving Hashem properly is having bad friends, because bad friends is a peer pressure that makes us not want to serve Hashem. And one, we shouldn't have such friends. We should be careful. We should be careful who we're friends with. It's very important to have good friends. And number two, if we find ourselves in a situation where somebody's mocking us for serving Hashem, we should totally ignore his picture. If we had the opportunity to make millions and millions of dollars, we totally wouldn't care what people said. So we should be confident. The point is to be confident in what we have, the tremendous gift from Hashem that we have a way in life to go to get close to Him, and we're living a true purpose by getting close to Hashem and living a spiritual life. We should be very confident in what we have, and we shouldn't care what other people think. And with that, we finished the first step of Mesilas Yesharim, which is Zehirus. And next week, God willing, pending worst pandemic, God forbid, we will go on to the attribute of Zrizus, of alacrity. This part was talking about being careful and not violating any of Hashem's precepts. The next few weeks we're going to be talking about being zealous and running to fulfill as many mitzvahs as we can, and how to acquire that trait.
That's great.